Good evening once again. This is Collister Fahie and this is Collister Fahie Show. Today is March 7th, 2025, Friday, March 7th, 2025. And on the hot seat tonight, the topic is discipline. As I promised last night, I am going to give you some information about President Sophia George of the University of the Virgin Islands and her inauguration celebration, which runs from Friday, March 14th to Monday, March 17th. So on Friday, March 14th, we will have the 63rd Charter Day ceremony on campus social. It begins at 10 a.m. and it is open to the UVA community and by special invitation to members of the public. It is at the Great Hall at the Albert Sheen campus on St. Croix. Also on Friday, March 14th, we have the inauguration celebration concert and fundraiser at the Elridge Blake Sports and Fitness Center, and it begins at 7 p.m. on the Orville Ken campus on St. Thomas. That is the concert and fundraiser featuring Pemani Marley and Lords and the Switch, etc. And it's a fundraiser for the Reichhold Center for the Arts. On Saturday, March 15th, we have the President's Pickleball Social, and it will be hosted by, of course, by President Sophia George. It begins at 8:30 a.m. It's at the Orville Ken campus on St. Thomas, and that event is by invitation only. Also on that day, we have the Alumni and Friends Luncheon, which will be at the university starting at 12 to noon, and it will be at the Biomedical Research and Training Center at the Orville Ken campus on St. Thomas. And that luncheon is by invitation only. We continue on Saturday, March 15th. We'll have the annual Charter Day concert, which will be held at the Antilles School campus beginning at 6:30 p.m. Now on Sunday, March 16th, we have the ever-popular Afternoon on the Green at the Orville Ken campus and St. Thomas. It begins at 5 p.m. and you can get food, drinks, and entertainment, and it will be at the Herman Moore Golf Course. Everybody knows where Afternoon on the Green is. It's expected that this year will be as tremendous as the past years. Now, on Monday, March 17th, is the investor ceremony, and it begins at 10 a.m. at the Elridge Break Sports and Fitness Center on the Orville Ken campus on St. Thomas, and this is the formal ceremony that officially welcomes Sophia George as the president of the University of the Virgin Islands. Now, this event will be live streamed on a campus watch party on St. Croix, and that will be on the Albert Sheen campus on St. Croix. It will be live streamed, and this event is open to the public on St. Thomas, but advanced registration is required, and it will be live streamed on all of the UVI media outlets. Now, for more information, you can go to Inauguration Celebration webpage, and for media inquiries, you can contact pr@uvi.edu. And that is the inauguration ceremonies for President Fahie George. It promises to be a weekend of fun, networking, and other events as we welcome President George to the University of the Virgin Islands. Now, as I said last night, I would kind of go around the Caribbean for a little bit before we get into the main crux of the topic. And the topic tonight is discipline. So there is some consternation to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank spending 22 million XCD or Eastern Caribbean dollars on an official mansion of the ECCB governor, Mr. Timothy Antoine, and the construction of this official mansion, which is in St. Kitts, which is where the bank is located. Now, 22 million XCD is equivalent to 8.15 million US dollars. And in this atmosphere and times as hard as it is, many are asking for care in the spending of so much millions of dollars. You know, some even asking for probably an investigation to see why an official mansion of such expense would be built. Again, this is just information out of the Caribbean, and it's amazing how much people are aware of monies, how monies are spent, and for the reason that they are spent. And I think that bodes good for all involved. Now I continue, and I came across a young man from St. Lucia. He's a politician, 25 years old, a young St. Lucian. And as I looked at his story, you know, a few things came to me. Now, during the campaign season, I staunchly defended, or advocated rather, that we need more young people to take part, give them an opportunity to weigh in on the governance of countries, especially in the USVA, but more so around the Caribbean and in fact the world. I keep applauding Traore, mid-30s, 35 or 36-year-old, of Burkina Faso in Africa. But this young man caught my eye, and it comes back to what I keep saying, you know, young people belong in politics. Young people belong in leadership. Young people belong in government. And it struck me that this 25-year-old, his name is Joshua Wayne, and he's a senator in St. Lucia. Now, he said something that caught my eye. He said, I am not a politician. I am a leader. Too many politicians aren't leaders, and too many leaders aren't politicians. I'm here to serve, to protect, to inspire, and to love my nation. Again, my listeners and my viewers, young people belong in politics. Young people belong in leadership. Young people belong in government. There is a time that those who have been there for 30, 40, 50 years must realize that even if their time is not up, that they should be winding down to give younger people an opportunity to impact the community in their way. This is a new millennium. The young people are smart. Some of them are driven. And I believe that it's time to give some of these young people a chance. Give them the opportunities to develop their country through their policies, their insight. It is the way forward, because clearly throughout the Caribbean, some of the older leaders, their policies aren't working. Too many times you hear of corruption. For example, corruption in the citizen by investment throughout the Caribbean. You hear scandals after scandals. People coming in, making promises, promises not delivered. And you hear it in St. Kitts and Nevis, you hear it in Dominica, you hear it in St. Lucia, and on and on. My take is, while there appears to be some form of discipline, unfortunately, it seems to be discipline towards the corrupt. And we will discuss that tonight. Now, I will come back to St. Lucia, because St. Lucia right now is set to undergo a revamping of their education system. And this will be funded, of course, by the Caribbean Development Bank. But it struck me that here is St. Lucia, not satisfied with the education system and whole cloth seeking to revamp it for the benefit of their children. While we in the Virgin Islands have been failing our children for decades, they are 3 or 4 grades behind. And we don't seem to have any urgency in fixing, revamping, or even just adjusting things to somehow allow our children to benefit and catch up. But here's St. Lucia. They don't get federal funds. They have to go to the Caribbean Development Bank for funding. So more than likely, that is a loan. Not more than likely, it's a loan. They have to pay it back. But they are concerned so much about their children that they are funding it to try to revamp the system so their children can get a better education. What are we doing in the USVI? What are we doing in the USVI? Now, I am going to come to the US Virgin Islands, and the topic is discipline. And tonight's topic is going to be serious. Discipline. We have some leaders who come to us year in, year out with the same old story. They believe that they are fooling us. But the people of the Virgin Islands are getting more politically astute. They're asking more of the right questions. And I told you, my listeners, my viewers, when you see these stories come out in the media, don't just look at the stories. Go down and look at the comments. Look at the level of intelligence, the level of discourse, the way people interact with one another, to give a whole picture of what the community is feeling, thinking, and how they look at some of these articles that are coming out in the news. I'll give you an example. And I'm going to start slow and end faster. This proposed diaspora link initiative, proposed by the delegate to Congress, Stacey Plaskett. I don't know how many times that has been proposed, revamped, proposed again. So is that the only thing that she can do every time she gets elected? to propose an old bill, try to revamp it and bring it back again to what? Fail again? So let me ask a question. We are trying to get an undersea cable from the Caribbean, I guess, the USVI, to Africa, funded by federal funds, from the same President Trump administration that we say we don't like. So how are we going to get the funding? You said that he should have been in jail. You said he's an insurrectionist. How do you get past that? The level of negative discourse over the last 4 years, of which the delegate to Congress was a prominent figure, strutting through the halls of Congress, tossing papers to colleagues, going on these television stations, these propaganda networks, spewing all sorts of things, making mistakes, she said, misspeaking, when it came to President Donald Trump. So let me ask a question. If the undersea cable is just a proposal, how many more years is it going to take before this proposal even get passed through the House? Well, I guess it's passed through the House now. They say bipartisan. I say the normal tricks of politicians, especially in Congress. It is give a little, we ain't going to get nothing in the end. But at the same time, we're trying to have an undersea cable. Isn't that just another slush fund scam? Take, for example, Starlink. Starlink can be deployed instantly right now. The government can make an agreement with Elon Musk and Starlink and have full coverage across the territory, the Caribbean, South America, going all the way to Africa. It will take some doing, but Starlink is ready to go. Wouldn't that be easier to install, operate, instead of this undersea cable? And this is just information for you to think about. I fear this is just another, what I say, a bridge to nowhere. This is just another proposal to nowhere that will end up being another proposal 2 or 3 years from now, again, because the delegate to Congress doesn't seem to have any new ideas. She made promises during the election campaign. What happened to the Postal Service? I mean, I digress. That's just more of the same. But now I go to the update on Darren Richardson. And it is a sad day in the United States Virgin Islands when an article is written and it says that one of our former CEOs, people should have known better, has now been found guilty and is facing up to 60 years in prison. 60 years. And he is summarily condemned in the media by the federal authorities for having conflicts of interest, committed banking fraud, money laundering, and making false statements. Yet you don't hear a word from our local authorities. Yes, inside the article you hear that the local inspector general worked hand in hand with the federal authorities. Well, where is the local inspector general's report to the attorney general of the Virgin Islands? Because if the feds saw a case where crimes were being committed, our local Department of Justice, VIPD, well, not VIPD, but the white collar crime unit, they didn't see anything wrong. And that is why I said discipline. They seem to be disciplined, very disciplined, in doing nothing when it comes to corruption in the Virgin Islands. This is decades. They are consistently disciplined. Disciplined to cover up, disciplined to move as if they are ostriches with their head in the sand. They can't see nothing, hear nothing, or say anything when it comes to local crimes. When it comes to general funds money, the people of the Virgin Islands, taxpayer funds, yet we see and hear all manner of things in the legislature, for example, coming out in these hearings. We know about the $25 million that former OMB director Jennifer O'Neill just moved without authority. Or maybe her authority was she was OMB director. She was a Democrat. She was appointed by the Democrat governor, Albert Bryan. And the majority of the legislature is Democrat. So they couldn't even move to hold her accountable for anything. So the discipline, across the board, they are very disciplined. Whether it is something to exalt is a different question. But have no doubt that they are disciplined. They know every which angle to ensure that their crimes do not ever face any indictment, prosecution, any indictment, any arrest, prosecution. That they are disciplined, very disciplined about. Now, as a former CEO of VIHFA, this guilty verdict on Darren Richardson is an indictment at the VI Housing Finance Authority. Have no doubt that that guilty verdict is going to have far-reaching impacts and a lot of things coming out of VI Housing Finance Authority. If you would recall, a former executive sued the VIHFA because she said they wanted her, in essence, to do unlawful things that were not legal under the federal funds and their guidelines. And she said that she was retaliated against. And so that lawsuit is pending. All this woman have to do is to pull up this case. Pull up this case. And say, this is an example of exactly what I'm talking about. Conflicts of interest, false statements, money laundering, just outright corruption. And I am telling you, while these people felt that all they had to do was follow the tried and true, disciplined way of engaging in corruption, those days seem to be coming to an end rapidly. Rapidly. It reminds me of a video I saw of Raymond Williams in the Board of Elections office, awaiting results of an election. And as results came in, he enthusiastically said, church out. Church out. Because I guess his horse was winning the race or had just won the race. My people of the Virgin Islands, my listeners, is church out for Darren Richardson. It is church out for Raymond Williams, I believe. It is church out for a lot of people who by now either know that they are under indictment or before a grand jury, or they know that it is soon time to come. Soon time to come. It is not hard to think. It's not hard to understand what is going on in the Virgin Islands, you know. Like I say, they are disciplined in corruption, disciplined in cover-up. I'll give you another example. Story come out, Republican cutbacks of federal funds is going to affect CHIP, Medicare, Medicaid in the Virgin Islands. That's the headline. And I said, but how could it affect Medicaid and Medicare if you have parameters that you must meet, basic requirements? How could the recipients be cut in almost half? It must have a reason. And so I keep reading. And lo and behold, down inside the article, it says that there was a massive increase during the COVID era of people who came onto Medicaid, Medicare, and other entitlements. Now, like I said, there are parameters that make you eligible for these things. So lo and behold, do you know why it almost cut in half the number of people who are on Medicaid? Because they now are outside the dollar amount that makes you eligible. In fact, they just make too much money now. And so they have to be taken off. Why? During COVID, they weren't working. They became eligible because the amount of money they made was below the 3,100, whatever. The 31,800 and whatever mark. So now that they're going back to work, they don't qualify anymore. So it isn't Trump cutbacks that affecting it here. It is the fact that half of the people who were eligible 2 years ago aren't now. They went back to work and their salaries are too high. They no longer are qualified. They're no longer eligible. And this is why I say we gotta read these articles and watch how these people move. The media also is very disciplined in giving you a 6 up here when there's a 9 down here. I continue. You see the governor and the premier of the BVI, quote unquote, having high level discussions, trying to crunch numbers. That ain't going no place. To me, that is more optics than anything else. Them guys are aligned to the hip. The governor just came from campaigning for them during the last election in the BVI. So to me, they just twiddle. They are disciplined in the seat also. Ain't nothing happening there. It can't be anything happening. So you telling me that the governor of the Virgin Islands is so concerned about the yachting industry and the people affected by the yachting industry, but he ain't concerned about the man down on top Lindbergh Beach? Right here in St. Thomas who getting knocked about by the government agencies and who more than likely will have to leave the beach. Once the government fixes its legal documents, the judge won't have any other choice but to follow the law. And I believe that he will have to move because of the law. The governor is so interested in protecting the yacht industry and the the horrors that is going to face if the BVI government raises the fees, that he went to the BVI and he's in discussions to try to solve this problem. But he ain't trying to solve the problems of the people right here in the Virgin Islands who are under siege with high food prices, high gas prices, and a high cost of living. That is what he should be more concerned about, or at least in the same vein, just as much concern, to work with the legislature and try to give relief to the people of the Virgin Islands. I continue, just like I told you. Here is St. Lucia attempting to revamp the education system with a loan from the Caribbean Development Bank. And we in the Virgin Islands have federal funds. And yet we have no plan that I know of to revamp the educational system in the Virgin Islands. Okay, let me try to give a few solutions, observations, ideas. First of all, we need to get away from the federal funds that come into the Virgin Islands, paying 75% to bureaucrats and only 25% is into our children and their learning. That's the first thing. How is it the federal funds paying so much exorbitant salaries for so many bureaucrats, executives, assistants to this? Over 70%. That's just a number I'll throw. So 70% for the bureaucrats to pay all sorts of things, and only 25% goes into the actual children, the actual education system to make them benefit. The same is true in the US. And so Trump is shutting down the Department of Education, and he is moving the funding directly to the states and the territories. Lord, I don't know if that is even a good thing. Because we have shown over the last 5 decades that in the departments of education, prior and now, they are disciplined in the status quo. Nothing changes. They speak a lot. They raise up and celebrate the exceptionalism of some of the students, while a majority of the students are coming out of high school undereducated, immature, with no life skills, much less the ability to go to college and perform well, or go to technical colleges and perform well. Our educational system must change. And I say, in order for that to change, we have to be more disciplined in integrity and ensuring that more of the federal funds go to where it is supposed to go, to the children, and not to a bunch of titles in huge salaries. Why don't we flip it and have less bureaucrats with titles and big salaries, and take some of that funding and give it to the teachers, raise the teachers' salary, so that you have more people wanting to teach, willing to teach, and then let us give the teachers the materials and the support that they need to teach our children. Our children should not be in classrooms of no more than 15. And I said it, a teacher can more than handle 15 students and teach them well. But when you have 22 and 25, no one teacher, and even if you have a paraprofessional there. So what we're saying then, the paraprofessional is a teacher, a substitute teacher, so 2 teachers in the classroom at the same time. The paraprofessional is getting paid also. Maybe we should lower the bar for paraprofessionals who have shown that they are competent and have a level of experience. That's what we used to do back in the day. Teachers were taught by other teachers, and they were exceptional, even if they didn't have a degree, up to the 80s and early 90s. It is only after the 90s that people started to say you had to have a paper. You had to have a degree in this and a degree in that, not realizing that we were being hoodwinked in a kind of way, because some of the very teachers were paper pushing incompetence. Yes, they have the degree, but they didn't know one toot about teaching because it wasn't something that was in the DNA. Many took it because it was a job. But I'm not down in that, because at the end of the day, you need people to come in, and you never know what rough will turn into a diamond. So I don't want the teachers and the paraprofessionals to think that I'm picking on them. I'm just saying the facts. Why not revamp the requirements? Not take it down, just revamp it so that you could find the skilled paraprofessionals. I knew some people who were paraprofessionals who are now teachers. They were excellent paraprofessionals. They did their work, in some instances, better than even teachers. In fact, many times they had to take over the class for extended periods of times when a teacher is sick, when there is no teacher. We have to become disciplined in the correct things. And so I continue again. I was pleased to see that a court held that the gentleman in St. Croix had to be given right away to his property. You have people putting big boulders to prevent a gentleman, somebody that live here, from getting to the property. I mean, what kind of life we living in these Virgin Islands, when people could come and want to dictate the very humanity? Just let a man go to his property, walk it out with the man. You had to let a court get involved to give the man his rights to a right away. But the good thing about that is the number of people that I saw show up in support of this gentleman as they move these boulders. I tell you, we are disciplined in the wrong things. These people were so disciplined in the negative. He must not get to his property. The fight is on. Police is called over and over. It ends up in court. You notice the discipline to get there? Now the court has ruled. Guess what? The community came out in force because they were observing what was going on. And they know that this man had to have the right to his property. Give the man the right away. And so they came out and celebrated the victory with the man. It was a nice change. And that is why I say that there is discipline towards the negative, the corruption. But lo and behold, the people at the Virgin Islands are starting to become disciplined towards integrity and standing up for what is right, what is just. And so it warmed my heart to see the number of people who went to support this man in St. Croix. Kudos to them. Much respect. That is the kind of discipline we need. The discipline to leave your home and to go and stand in solidarity with somebody who needs your support, because we is one community. Aren't we one community? If one suffers, we all suffer. And so I had to say that. Things are changing rapidly in the Virgin Islands. Rapidly. Because of what is happening in the United States, I can see the tentacles of integrity starting to come into the Virgin Islands. So now I'm going to jump off of the Virgin Islands and, as usual, tell you about the whole picture. All of what I've said before, getting young people involved, watching the media, how they spin stories, gaslighting the people when they know fully well what the actual truth is, giving the impression that somehow somebody, or the Trump administration and the Republicans, are causing them not to be able to do their job, are restricting any entitlements they're supposed to get. That is a farce. Do your job. Be disciplined in your job. Tell the people of the Virgin Islands the truth. And the truth of the matter as I encompass it. What is happening in the US, as I keep saying, it is the exact same thing happening in the Virgin Islands. Here is the United States Congress people explaining how the EPA funds, the HUD funds, the FEMA funds, Department of Interior funds, funds for highways and bridges. See where I'm going? All these funds have one similar vein. Under these past presidents and their administrations, they were extremely disciplined in making sure that millions and billions of dollars was set aside to move all around in a circle of corruption. They were extremely disciplined. Now take what I say and imagine the Virgin Islands and see if it is not the exact same thing happening here in the shores of these Virgin Islands among our political class and everybody surrounding them. The EPA and all these different agencies are doling out billions under the past administrations. These funds are then sent to consultants. Consultants take their portion of the millions and billions before any services are done. These consultants use non-governmental agencies, NGOs, or we can call them not-for-profits for the Virgin Islands, who take another set of the millions and billions, and still nothing is done based on what the money is for. Because on these NGOs are people who are highly aligned to the consultants who were either former government officials or brokers and lobbyists for the same Congress people who appropriate the millions and the billions. Then those NGOs take a massive portion of the millions and billions that they have now received from the consultants. Mind, all this time, nothing is done. There is nothing that is done based on the parameters of what the funding is for, yet. These NGOs now, some of who are spouses, children, brothers, uncles, good friends of political candidates and elected officials, they now take some of the billions and the millions and billions that they get from the contractors and they shuttle it back to the elected officials through political contributions, kickbacks, and bribes. They now take these political contributions, kickbacks and bribes, and appropriate more funding for the very same entity that has not done anything yet, and yet they now get twice, 3 times the amount of appropriated funding, millions and billions. Again, still nothing is done. 2 years pass, 3 years pass, 7 years pass. And they go around and around in a disciplined circle of corruption. Isn't the same thing happening here in the Virgin Islands? So now comes the Trump administration in, and they have decided to be disciplined. Disciplined in auditing every single one of the agencies. Guess what they found? Waste, fraud, and abuse is money laundering. It is RICO. The entire, I keep saying that the government of the Virgin Islands is a RICO. Well, my word, the government of the United States, based on what we have seen, is absolutely a RICO. After Joe Biden lost the election, the Biden administration and all them bureaucrats and consultants and NGOs, they started to work together, disciplined in the corruption, to try to do the very same things they were doing all these years, decades. From under Trump, from under Bush the first, Clinton, Bush the second, Obama. Trump came in and upturned the apple cart. They put back in Biden, and they decided to make sure that the Trump administration could not stop the gravy train, the RICO, the money laundering. So within that month, December to January, they put aside millions, billions of dollars to be shuttled to these consultants, these NGOs that just pop up, never heard of, didn't do nothing. You have an immigrant center that is empty, never house an immigrant, getting $164 million, or a billion, I don't remember exactly, but the billion is 10 times worse. And so now Trump is saying, well, listen, Department of Government Efficiency, all of my nominated people who are now in position, we want to audit every single one of them, from the FBI, the Pentagon, the Department of Justice, EPA, FEMA, the HHS, Department of Education, come all the way around, Department of Interior, Secret Service, Department of State. They're even looking at the ambassadors. And every place they look, they're finding millions, billions of dollars. And so the Trump administration is doubling down and disciplining themselves on how to look for the fraud. And they are becoming clinical. The exact same things that they found in USAID, and they're shutting down USAID. They have found in the EPA, they have found in FEMA, HHS, and on and on and on. And lo and behold, they have found that some of our elected officials in the United States are direct recipients in some instances, because these elected officials shuttle monies from the federal government to their children, to their spouses, just because they are on the boards of highly paid executives of consultants and NGOs. Super PACs that then funnel the funds back to the elected officials. You hear about Stacey Abrams, you hear about Kamala Harris, you hear about Letitia James, now we're finding out about Fannie Willis. Every place you look, disciplined search. That is why Elon Musk is essential. These young people who understand the algorithms and how they must move within these agencies to discover first some of the waste, fraud, and just outright theft of government funds. But they are adapting, because as they find out about the corruption, the theft of funds in USAID, people in the EPA were moving to try to hide it by moving a different way. They adapted and found it. And now they have a template to search out all of these agencies, starting from the political, to the grant funding, to the FEC, which is the filings of political contributions. And they have put it into position, and now they are finding out much, much, much worse corruption. Today, ActBlue, which is a gargantuan in democratic circles in terms of fundraising for Democrats and the DNC, they have executives who are running for cover. 7 of them resigned. People sending emails basically saying, listen, we're going to become whistleblowers. You're not going to leave us whole in the bag. And so the most predominant source of fundraising for the Democrats is now under investigation. And every single minute of today, more and more was found out. And people are going to get indicted in that one. You had people whose names were coming up donating hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they don't know, never donated to a Democrat yet. They're living in Ohio, but they're donating to New York City. They're living in California, but donating in Florida. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. It takes discipline to look at each level of corruption and put them into position. And Department of Government Efficiency is doing it rapidly, and they are doing it clinically. They are applying the same amount of discipline that those misleaders, corrupted politicians have done for decades. They are now flipping the script and applying young people who are not corrupted. They have no skin in the game. They are techies. They get joy. Success in their mind is to finding the waste, fraud, abuse, and giving it in reports to Elon Musk, who then passes it on to the Trump administration for them to act. The Department of Government Efficiency has no arresting powers. They only find information and present it to the Trump administration. Why do you think that the Democrats and these rhinos and never Trumpers are screaming to the hill that they want the corruption, the exposing of corruption to stop? Can you imagine the Democrat Party is advocating against auditing and against the anti-corruption measures that the Trump administration is engaged in, what the majority by far of the United States voters are in favor of? I'll give you more examples. While ActBlue is being investigated and exposed, President Trump, in his wisdom, is stating that the Department of Education is going to be disbanded, USAID is going to be disbanded. They are auditing the Pentagon that has not passed an audit. They have lost billions of dollars, just disappear. But while the Democrats are screaming and howling and saying, no Doge, no Doge, stop looking at the agencies, Trump have asked his Department of Government Efficiency to look at every politician, senator, congressman, representative, and the people that lobby for them, consult for them, and the NGOs that are receiving funds that they are not doing a thing with. They're not doing a job. They just receive trillions, millions, billions, trillions of dollars. They've been doing this for decades. And he has asked them to look at every individual who should have been getting a salary in the Senate, in the House, of $175,000, $200,000. But their worth is 69 million, 150 million, 296 million. Can you imagine what they're going to find? Social media tells you some of these guys came in broke. They had a $29,000 debt and the $69 million net worth less than 3 terms later. Did you guys see Nancy Pelosi's face at Trump's address to the Congress? Did you see Maxine Waters' face? Did you see Elizabeth Warren's face? Jeffrey's face? Green had to go on like how he went on in the Congress, because he know that the next day or the following day, what he has been doing in the Congress would have been exposed. So now here comes, similar to the U.S. Virgin Islands, we finding out. Well, it was known before, but it's back in the fore. It's back in the front of the media that these senators and representatives have a slush fund that they pay out to any sexual harassment and deviancy claims brought against them, and it is kept from the public. Trump said, well, maybe we need to let the public know how much of these senators pay out in the slush funds, out of the slush fund, and the amounts. So this is the other step now. We go from the consultants, the money that appropriated for the consultants, and we look at the NGOs and the contractors underneath of them. Then we look at the FEC filings to see what kickbacks come in, what political contributions are put in violation of that law. Then we look and see how these politicians then send more funding out to the same group to restart the very same cycle. And then we link it to the enriching of themselves when their net worth increase to millions of dollars when they're only working for $175,000 annually. Wow. It is that kind of discipline we need here in the Virgin Islands, in the Caribbean, across the world. People who are disciplined enough to know that they are civil servants who are in power to serve the people. Give the effort. Stop calling yourselves solid Democrat majority. Become leaders and not politicians. Look out for the people. Be disciplined in that. And so I admonish the senators of the 36th legislature, because I believe that the governor and the lieutenant governor are too far gone. You can't admonish them into none. I try. I try. You say that they may have the ability to change. Sometimes I think that, and then at other times when I see the actions, I think not. So I admonish the senators of the 36th legislature. You are elected, regardless of if you think that the solid majority Democrat bloc elected you. You are elected to be leaders. You are elected to ensure that you discipline yourselves, to ensure that there's no waste, fraud, and abuse of the taxpayers of the Virgin Islands' money. You are elected to sit in the Senate and do oversight of the other branches of government. You were elected to not be a part of any corrupt group or alliance and put them over the people. So you have seen the template from the United States. It isn't hard to do. Ask questions in the legislature. Who are your contractors? Who are the not-for-profits associated with these contractors? The NGOs. How many of these NGOs, these not-for-profits, consultants, under these huge contractors are these huge consultants who have contractors who now are aligned with NGOs? These not-for-profits, how much of them turn around and donate to the campaigns of you as senators, to the governor? How much? Your silence speak volumes because you seem to be disciplined in the corrupt cabal. Well, then your days are numbered too. Just as in the United States, a lot of those senators and representatives' days are numbered. It's going to come to pass. The days are numbered. It only takes one influencer on social media to get one of them young people who have those algorithms to look deep into the archives, look into what is public information, and find out, just like how they found out Stacey Abrams get billions of dollars, they ain't do a thing, and yet she linked with Kamala, linked with Letitia James. The very same crimes that they said Trump committed, we're now finding out that Letitia James overvalued her property to go to the bank for a loan. They accuse everybody else of the very things that they're doing. They are disciplined in that. It happens here in the Virgin Islands. We call it flipping the script. How many times have people flipped the script and somebody who just wanted to do the job and do it right? You call them no longer team players. You call them troublemakers. You call them all kind of names except to being honest. You don't say that they're honest. You don't say they have integrity. You don't say they just want to do their jobs in a disciplined way, not violating any laws, simply doing the job of the government, what they were hired to do, for the money that they were hired to do. You dismiss these people as being the problem because you are disciplined in corruption and you are the actual problem. But you have the support of other disciplined corruptors and you feel that somehow that's gonna last. Well, it might have lasted for 4 decades. But 2025 is the year of justice. And you have a lot of disciplined people. People who are disciplined to a fault. You could try anything you want, you can't catch them. You could come up with all kind of story. They are ready. You cannot catch them. Some of these people, unfortunately, because they were part of the disciplined corruption, when it came time now to try to do the right thing, they find themselves out. Because there's no honor among thieves. And so they would run to court and sue, only to find that the government now brings evidence to show that the very same person was engaged in corruption themselves. You see how we go? There is only 2 ways. You're either disciplined in corruption and you never, ever walk the straight and narrow, or you are disciplined in integrity and ethics and you are never going to go the corrupt way. Only 2 sides. The people who get brutalized down the middle were corrupted and trying to come good. And so the corruptors have things on them. my people of the Virgin Islands, my listeners across the globe, choose your side and choose your side well. If you have to stand alone in integrity, stand alone in integrity. You must maintain your discipline by suffering. Maintain your discipline by suffering. Do not go and become corrupt because you think that is the way to enrich yourself and be successful. It is for a time. Darren Richardson has found out the hard way. The hard way. And that is why I keep telling my viewers, my listeners, these are topics that people ain't gonna want to touch. But we're gonna touch them here. It's a battle between good and evil. That's what we say. I switch it up and say it's a battle too. It's a battle between disciplined good and disciplined bad. Have no doubt, they could not have the US Virgin Islands, the government of the United States, in the throes of what the corruption that we now seen for decades. If they weren't disciplined, they were extremely disciplined in the corruption. So much so that despite on the Trump campaign, COVID came and they told us it was a killer. Now we find out COVID killed less than the common flu. They told us that ivermectin and hydrochloroquine were not treatments for COVID. Now we find out they are the best treatments for COVID. You see how disciplined they were in the narrative? They had the media, the politicians, the experts, the scientists. They had the pharmaceutical companies. They weaponized law enforcement. They weaponized Antifa, Black Lives Matter. They burned down black communities. They made common sense people believe that George Floyd was killed because of the knee in the back of his neck, when it was an overdose, the drugs he had in his body that led to his death. And at the same time, I can say that policeman or them policemen putting the knee in the back of his neck for over 8 minutes was wrong. It was horrendous. But two things could happen at the same time. They sainted George Floyd, bent their knees, politicians. They put on masks, make us put on masks, stand 6 feet apart, not be able to go in the stores as we wanted. And they said it was to stop the spread of a killer. They told us that we had to put our loved ones on ventilators, only for us to now find out that the ventilators were killing our people, our families, our children, our mothers, fathers. Now find out that the vaccines are doing more harm than the COVID itself. They are disciplined in corruption. So have no doubt that just like how 2 attempts were made on Trump life, they are extremely disciplined in the things they do, and there is more to come. Can you imagine that you have FBI supervisors and execs refusing to carry out the orders of the commander-in-chief, the president, the FBI director, the attorney general, and then walk out of the FBI building with people applauding? They are disciplined in corruption. You see the amount of cases filed to try to stop Trump and just put stumbling blocks in his way so that he cannot get his agenda fully in operation, they are disciplined in Lafayette. But what they fail to realize, fool Trump once, shame on you. But if you fool Trump twice, it's shame on Trump. So Trump now is extremely disciplined. You watch his signing of executive orders. You watch the way he comes to the press room. You watch the way he gives interviews, the way he speaks to the press. You watch the way that he deports himself as it comes to these lawsuits. No more outbursts. No more tantrums because he is aggravated. Trump understands that regardless of the Lafayette, it goes up to the Supreme Court eventually. And the Supreme Court must interpret the law based on the law. And yes, he might lose some, but he's going to win much more. And if memory serves me right, when the Supreme Court ruled that Biden had overstepped his reach in trying to give the student loans, what Biden said? What did President Biden say? The Supreme Court tried to stop me, but I found a way around them. Did anybody call for Biden to be arrested and jailed? Did any of the Democrats who now talking Trump, 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 did any of the Democrats ask for Joe Biden to be impeached for disobeying an order that came down from the Supreme Court of the United States? Not one. I said to President Trump, be disciplined in ethics and integrity. And any right that is under Article 2 that you have as a president, go right ahead and do it as a president. Let the Supreme Court figure out if they are more powerful than the Constitution of the United States of America. Be disciplined. Be disciplined in following the rule of law, following the Constitution, and doing what the majority, by far 90%, 85% of the people of the United States elected you to do. And that is what he's doing. And so when I speak about discipline, as I said, corruption is a choice. Having ethics and integrity is a choice, and so is discipline. Anyone who is worth their salt will exude discipline either way. You're going to know they're corrupted, or you're going to know that these are people that cannot be corrupted. And that is why I said I am very surprised in the US Virgin Islands to see people who are independent sound worse than Democrats. I am surprised to see people who I think are Republican sound worse than Democrats. And I am extremely surprised that the Democrats are extremely silent. So that means the whole of the Virgin Islands is Democrats. It is Democrats who are disciplined in corruption and Democrats who are disciplined in integrity. These Democrats who believe in the rule of law have left the Democrat Party that believe in corruption because they can't take it no more. Because they have ethics and integrity. They are disciplined that way. Wow. So all these years, decades, we hear about the Democrats, the independents, the Republicans. And I hear people saying, oh, the Republicans working to get Democrats elected. And don't mind them independents. They're really independents. They vote almost 98% with the Democrats. In fact, they were Democrats before they become independents. So they really want independence. They use it to get a participation trophy. Oh, we have 3 independents elected in the legislature. It's a holding pattern for a participation trophy because they're really Democrats. But they're going to join with the Democrats all the time. And the Republicans, you hardly got any, and maybe one, and they're going to vote with the Democrats and the independents who are also Democrats. Now and again. The Virgin Islands cannot succeed that way. Where's the checks and balances? And so it is up to the people of the Virgin Islands. You, my listeners, my viewers. It is you who have to rise up like MAGA and the Republicans and all them Democrats who left the Democrat Party and voted for Trump. You have to find your fighter. You have to find somebody who will come up and upturn the apple cart. Because even Trump, and even as much as you hear me say, he will come in and turn the apple cart upside down. He still has to have checks and balances for him. It is not that let Trump do what he wants. No. Trump must also have checks and balances. But for the interim, for now, Trump is taking a hatchet to the corrupt state. He is taking a hatchet and exposing the corruption. And we say go full speed ahead. But I also say that if Trump at any time moves to become corrupted, to become self-enriching, to try to shuttle contracts to people who are aligned with him under the guise of anything, call out Trump too. This is a win-win. We not supporting people alone, our party alone. We supporting policies. We have to be disciplined that way. If the people of the Virgin Islands turn out for themselves, like how the people in St. Croix turn out for the gentleman who the court overturned, or the court ruled that he must be given right away to his land. You see how many people show up and supported him. If the people of the Virgin Islands move in tandem, forget party, forget people, forget popularity. Think about yourself now. Move in tandem for your benefit, knowing that anytime anyone that you support makes a move to join or become part of the corruption that you have seen for decades, you ain't waiting for no election. You're moving to remove them immediately because you got that power. Anybody try to shut down the beaches and you move as a pack and you go to the beaches and you demand that the beaches have access, you don't realize that the beaches end up getting access? Power of the people. Discipline the power of the people. It is up to you. Just like in the United States. They choose the fighter, and every day on social media, even mainstream media, they're saying, you know, I've never seen this. A politician that campaigned that he's going to do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and oh my God, 1 month in office, and the dude is doing exactly what he said he was going to do in the campaign trail. I love that. That is what I voted for. The Democrat Party can't win another election in maybe 20, 30 years. They have center, they have a common sense. Trump is just simply staying center, using common sense. People say expose corruption. That's what I'm going to do. People say look at these congressmen who making bank and a $174,000 salary and their net worth is now over 100 million. Investigate them. That is what the people want. That is what Trump say he gonna do, and the people love it. Go right ahead, Trump. Elon Musk don't have no power to lock up nobody. He just bringing in his brilliant young scientists, technical scientists, the engineers, and they just put in algorithms and just finding the corruption, the waste, fraud, and abuse, the theft of the people money in the billions, and he turning it over. That is what Trump ran on. And so the people say, thank you, Elon. You are doing what Trump asked you to do. That is why he ran on. And we are here for it. And he's doing exactly what we vote for him for. And so we are grateful that at least we find one politician who keeping his promises. So we could come back from that as a Democrat Party. Then you got Democrats singing "We Shall Overcome." All of a sudden, white people singing black anthems. It proving Trump right again. Trump says that all the Democrats do is use optics to try to keep the blacks and the Hispanics and the plantation voting for them, and so they could do whatever they want, and then they do nothing for black people, nothing for Hispanics. And as soon as they find themselves against the wall, they start to sing "We Shall Overcome." They want people to come in and sing the black national anthem. They want to tell you about Black History Month. They want to tell you about transgenderism and tell you that he have white supremacy that is driving racism. Well, who started the KKK? It won the Democrat Party? Who started the KKK? Who fight against segregation? Desegregation of schools? Wasn't the Democrat Party? Who fought against abolishing slavery in the United States? It wasn't the Democrat Party? Who fight against black people voting? I mean, listen, they could talk about thing flip and the parties ain't no flip. The first senators, first representatives, first congressmen were Republicans who were black across the board. The Democrats have lost their way. They have been too disciplined for decades in corruption, too disciplined for decades in fostering racism, too disciplined for decades in treating black people and Hispanics as if they are voting slaves. If you don't vote for me, that means you ain't black. Oh, I gonna eat chicken leg, fried chicken, whenever I go into a black community. Yet they stand by the Democrats and allow Black Lives Matter and Antifa to burn down black cities, to destroy black businesses. And what did black people get in return? Black Lives Matter leaders got millions. They became millionaires and they built mansions. The rest black people had to rebuild their communities. What did Hispanics get in return? Joe Biden was elected and he opened the border and imposed illegal immigrants who carried down the wages of the very Hispanics who were working in the US. in the crops and construction fields and drive the salaries down. My listeners, my viewers, it is not hard to be disciplined in corruption. Not hard at all. Doesn't take much. But it is a yeoman's job. It takes real discipline, real work to be disciplined in integrity, ethics, to call out conflicts of interest wherever you see them, to call out even the appearance of a conflict of interest. You will be labeled, you will be slighted. You may even suffer. But like I always say, time longer than twine. And in this 2025, we are beginning to see the edges of karma coming around. The edges of you have done too much. The edges of you have gone too far. The edges you have become incompetent and impotent in many ways. Nobody believes you anymore. Nobody believes the Democrats. Even here in the Virgin Islands, nobody believes them. Everybody think that they're talking through two sides of the mouth. If Governor Brian said jump, you sit down. If Governor Brian said run, you sit down because it's only fake, it's upsticks. If Governor Brian tell you tomorrow there's a state of emergency at Wapa, you know it is a lie. He said it last year and Wapa still hitting the ground this year. If the governor tell you, oh, the Virgin Islands is moving towards resiliency, energy sustaining programs, Green New Deal, we are moving to solar. We know that he ain't talking no truth because now he align with Trump and he for deregulations and he for starting back up the refinery. That's not green energy. That's not solar. Be disciplined. Be disciplined and you will realize the hypocrisy. You will really realize the incompetence. You will realize the weakness of the Democrat Party. They have no standing in the community anymore other than the little trails of corruption that they have left. But every single day, people who are disciplined in ethics and integrity expose them. We have taken who we need to take to court, and it will come to pass because we have done that on behalf of the people of the Virgin Islands. We are disciplined that way. We have taken people to court to defend the lands of the Virgin Islands because we are disciplined that way. Our intent is for the whole, for the people of the Virgin Islands. The Board of Elections have people with integrity on the board. People who are going to sit on that board and advance what the people of the Virgin Islands want. So I said it, so it will be done. No more of the supervisor of the elections, this so-called chairman, Raymond Williams, bullying the board members. They want to fight, they get fight. And if it must be, then the board must be disbanded. It must be destroyed. And I said it because you got to be disciplined that way. You know, some people going to say, well, if I really talking some rough rhetoric tonight. No, I'm not. Them is the same people who want bus badwood and board members and employees. Them is the same people who want to shut down board meetings and walk out. Them are the same people who telling you, of course not. We're not going to suspend or terminate the supervisor of elections because we're his friend, I guess. And they sit by and let the supervisor of elections basically call Ida Smith a liar, a thief, and a fraud on public airwaves. Well, we're going to see how that go because we're going to put that to the test too. Because we are disciplined that way. Because we are doing it for the people of the Virgin Islands. Because for far too long, there's those who corrupted have been very disciplined in the corruption. They think that you don't have no say. They think that they have the power in their little pack, their minority, because they have this so-called solid Democrat base. So they are basically saying that the solid Democrat base is corrupt to the bone. I don't believe that. I don't believe that the rank and file voters at that Democrat party are corrupted like the corruption. So you want to tell me all the voters in St. Croix who vote Democrat, they agree that Darren Richardson should have do all the crimes he do till he get found guilty by some of the same Democrats who are on the jury? No, you ain't fooling me. They are trying to give you a narrative, and I'm going to tell you the truth. The discipline that it takes to fight the corrupt is harder than the discipline it takes for the corrupt to be corrupt. But you see, once you already start along that path of anti-corruption, anti-bullying, giving the bullies what they give you, giving the corruptors what they give you, like them Epstein enablers, quiet. They ain't saying a word. The corruption on the street, the corruption is in the public sphere, and they own very Democrat bloc. As much as they think that the Democrat bloc vote for Stacey to be in power again, and who was on phone and calling out all the elders to come out, the elders suffering like hell now. People on the street calling them same voters, them elders who went and vote for Stacey, and vote for Brian, and voted for DeYoung, and voted for Turnbull, and voted for Farrelly, and voted for Christensen. These are the same Democrats that voted for Stacey Plaskett after she used up Epstein money to defeat a son of the soil, because she was born and raised in New York. It's the same things I said before. They accuse you of what they do. The supervisor of elections, in her corrupted ways, go on the public media and say, oh, Ida Smith, nobody know her. She just come here. But what did Stacey Plaskett do? Because Stacey Plaskett born and raised in New York. Oh, you think people forget? But that the corrupt will do what corrupt does. So Stacey Plaskett born and raised in New York, Ida from New York, but you defame Ida on the public radio and you said nothing about Stacey Plaskett, because all are you are one. Are you go church together, I guess? Or are you invited to the same parties and get-togethers? That is the discipline you must have to understand and to tell the general public that the corrupt leadership of Democrats, they're accusing you, the voters of that solid Democrat majority, are being just as corrupt as them. Well, how much are you agree that Darren Richardson should have take money and take bribe? How much are you think that he should have done bank fraud? How much are you think he should have given false statements to the feds? How many of you think that he should have sit on the board and give a contract to his friend to get money back from his friend? Are you Democrat majority bloc? How much are you agree with that? Because the leadership said that are you one, are you corrupt just the same? How many of the Democrat majority bloc is corrupt enough to agree that O'Neill should have taken a $15,000 bribe to pay for she coffee shop when she was making sure that Whitaker was getting paid by making a phone call to finance and clearing up the money through OMB? Because Martinez says so. All I agree with that? Are you corrupt, sir? But that's what they say. They say the Democrat majority bloc is just as corrupt as them, because I will vote for them regardless, I guess, if they even kill somebody. That's just my opinion. But I don't believe that, because I was more Democrat than a lot of you. Collister Fahie was more Democrat than a lot of you. Let me give you some of the history now. And I'll show you how corruption is a choice. Theft of government funds is a choice. Conflicts of interest and pretending you don't see them is a choice. When Bingley Richardson was running for election, he was a statesman. When Ruby Rose was running for election, she was a patriot and a stateswoman. Lorraine Berry, like her or not, was a masterful politician in these Virgin Islands. I supported from Roosevelt David, Ali Petrus, Asbot Potter, David Jones, Louis Patrick Hill. You want me continue? John Baptist. You want me continue? Usi Richards. You want me continue? Russell. You want me continue? Arturo Watlington. I could go on and on. Come to the present. Senator Blyden. Senator de Graaf. I know them all. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger. Janelle Sorrow. Notice me picking out? Because at the end of the day, it was 75% voting with the Democrats across the board. Yes, some of them stood up for the people. Respect due. But I'm saying to you, who support more Democrat than me? I can't tell me about Democrats voting. You want to tell me, oh, you have some people who in the 60s and 70s who've been voting Democrat from since 1960 this and 1970 that? Well, I am here to tell those Democrats, if they happen to see this podcast, nothing is worse than the children that you raise to have integrity fool you into believe that what they are doing is in the best interest of the Virgin Islands when all they're doing is enriching themselves. So every time they give you a trip, every time they put you on a cruise, when they give you the best doctors in the United States, when they build you a house in Florida, a house in North Carolina, when they give you a house in Georgia, in upstate New York, Virginia, California, Texas, you are getting the benefits of the backs of the people of the Virgin Islands who you as elders say you love. Your children have gone astray, and they are now adults who have chosen to be disciplined in corruption, racketeering, money laundering, and stealing the funds of the people of the United States Virgin Islands. And you should be ashamed of them, and you should never vote for them again. Every time you go to church and you pray and you ask for forgiveness and you say, Lord, Father, allow me to be righteous in my ways. Allow me to not be a sinner. Allow me to love my fellow man. And I ask you this, in your son's name's sake. So help me God. And then you say, amen. I say, your children are doing the exact opposite of what you are asking the Father above to ordain. And like I always say, his will be done. Because our God is a loving God, is an understanding God, is a righteous God. He is a forgiving God. but he is also a God of fairness and his will. It is his will that is always done. So stay disciplined for good. Because those who are disciplined for evil, their time in 2025 is nigh. So to my listeners and my viewers, good night, and God bless each and every one of you. Be disciplined. Be disciplined.